Now, easily the game of the weekend, South Carolina hosting LSU, the game that everyone was like, why is Game Day going there, even though they hadn't been there in 10 years? And it just absolutely delivered on all levels. Chaos everywhere, just flags that were... Look, I'm not the refs guy, and I even said it last week. If someone complains losses on the refs, don't talk football with them. But yesterday in college football, there was just absolute insanity in terms of penalties all across the country. I'll get into that later, but this game was a prime example of it. South Carolina fans, which is crazy, not many people come together after games, but I mean, you had people from like high-level reporters and everyone saying South Carolina got screwed over. And I have to agree, man. The pick six in the first quarter getting called back, more so by rule. It was correct in terms of what the official thought. It wasn't a horse collar. He pulled the jersey, but it's whatever there. But the one at the end, the hit on Nussmeier, we got to stop treating quarterbacks like they are toddlers. You can't hit a quarterback anymore. It's ruining football. And look, football's not going to die. I know football's changing and all this stuff, but you literally have to grab them, give them a forehead kiss, and put them on the ground even after they throw an interception. That guy, as soon as he throws that pick, Nuss turns his head, gets ready to make a play on defense. He is no longer a quarterback. He is a defender trying to make a tackle, and he didn't even get like, people are like, oh, it's a blindside. It wasn't a true blindside, and he got shoved. Like, oh, and then he sat there on the ground. Spare me, dude. That was one of the worst penalty calls I have ever seen, and I'm not the refs guy, and obviously that doesn't dictate the game in the long run, because here's the thing. Two things can be true at once. Absolutely awful, but LSU still grinded back from that 17-0 deficit. That's a thing. That was an impressive comeback after even getting stopped on a 4th and 1 and goal-to-go scenario. Then you had the 10-play drive coming back. Nussmeier, when he had to lock in, he was able to lock in. This was just one of those games where someone had to win and it got ugly and grinded out. But another thing is LSU got lucky in this game. But the thing is, they did the work for luck to be able to win them the game at the same time. But the end drive by Shane Beamer, man, when Robbie gets them to it was like the 40 or whatever, and they elect to run the ball instead of trying to get yards. They're down by 3, okay? So it's a 2nd and 8. They only have one timeout. 20 seconds or something left in the game, and they decide to run the ball, which he wanted to set it up for the field goal. But the kicker had never kicked a game-winning or tying field goal within the last 2 minutes, and you're going to have him kick a 49-yard field goal in a game that's a college game day game. That's a tough kick. And then, of course, he missed. You played it safe, but you still got yourself there. This is what's frustrating for South Carolina is everyone kind of did their job, and Lenoris getting hurt obviously set things back offensively. If he didn't get hurt, LSU would not have won this game. But the thing is, injuries are a part of football. They happen. You have to give LSU their credit, but also it sucks, South Carolina. It really sucks. But if you would have told me South Carolina was going to be 2-1 right now, I wouldn't have believed you before the season started, especially with how you've looked. Obviously, the passing game can get better, but Sellers looks awesome right now. The defensive line with Kennard and Stewart, I said it after week 1, even after the Old Dominion game. I was like, look, even if they don't figure things out and they're worse than we think, they're going to be a problem for everybody they play. Nussmeier is going to be feeling those hits until the start of next season. If I was an opposing quarterback, I would not want to play South Carolina. That is the last team I would want to play. Not because we probably can't necessarily win the game, no hate on you, South Carolina, but I would not want to go against your defensive front. It is a thing of absolute nightmares, and I really think you're going to be an improved team this year, way more than I thought. And obviously, we look at the penalties, but 13 penalties for 123 yards. Not all penalties were penalties that were, suspicious, but that can't be a thing. Beamer even pointed that out, but Sellers, man, it's tough, and I saw Robbie at the end sitting on the ground, and I really enjoyed Robbie at Auburn. I mean, he wasn't the best player while he was here, but he was someone who always worked hard. So I was cheering for him yesterday to lead that drive, and I really hated that Beamer took it out of his hands. I think Beamer was afraid Robbie was going to make a mistake, and I think you just needed to get more yards in that situation, and we could be having a different conversation. But also at the same time, I don't know if you would want to go into overtime either when you think about this with LSU at that time, because your offense has kind of been stalled out without Sellers. So I feel like overtime would have favored LSU. I would have tried for the touchdown there, but maybe I'm overthinking it. Either way, dude, you gotta be happy if you're South Carolina. You spanked Kentucky last week. You almost take LSU down at home on College Game Day on campus. Everything was looking so dark and going really dark fast after week 1. Now there's hope. There is hope in South Carolina. I mean, let's look at your schedule going forward. You got Akron, obviously. Then you have a bye week before Ole Miss comes to town. Then you go to Bama, and then you go to Oklahoma, another bye week. Then you have A&M at home, at Vandy, Missouri at home, at Clemson later in the year. You have plenty of chance. Like, South Carolina is probably going to get somebody on this schedule, and it's tough to find some wins. But right now, looking at Oklahoma, it's not like they look like anything crazy. And with the way your defensive front is, Jackson Arnold might be running in circles, screaming, help, help, help. Alabama, that'll be tough. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That might be a beatdown. That's just how it is. But Ole Miss, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm really high on Ole Miss, but also at the same time, you have the most underrated environment in all of college football. Your fans always go crazy, especially for the early day games. Usually seem to be like the ones that actually usually work out. And you got Texas A&M at home as well, Missouri at home. I wouldn't be surprised with the Clemson game either. I think this is going to end up being a better year than we think for South Carolina. I'm not going to ramble this, but I think you should be happy with where you are, especially with a lot of people starting to hate and start to doubt. I also being one of those. But I think you can be better than you are, or better than we thought. And the black uniforms, I always forget how good those actually are. Like, I always forget about them, and then they come out in them, I'm just like, oh